Okay, this is the second video on how to set up a blockchain service on Bluemix and learn Chaincode. You'll remember that we installed Go locally in the last video, so I'm going to want to check the Go version, make sure it's correct. So go to your terminal session. I'm running a Mac, and if you look in the tutorial, if you remember from the last video, it talks about downloading version 1.6. I recommend, especially if you're on the Mac, to actually download the latest version 1.8. On the Mac, if you download an earlier version, you'll find that your code won't compile. Hopefully the documentation will be updated shortly. So let's go ahead and just type Go version at the command prompt, and there I go. I have 1.8. So next step is we're going to have to set up a directory where your Go code is going to live. Go looks in that directory for non-standard dependencies. When we download the sample Go Chaincode, I'll show you the imports and what they do. So Go actually looks at an environmental variable called GoPath. Typically, when you download Go, this defaults to your root, though it doesn't have to be at your root. I like to set this so I know where the code is. So what I did is I went and opened my bash profile, and you want to do this. I do it at the root, and so I just want to open that up. Okay, I already have it set, but what you want to do is you want to use the export command, and you're going to set it to your GoPath directory. Now, one thing I didn't show you is I actually already set the GoPath. I created a directory underneath my root, and that's where I put it. So let's go back out, and as you'll see right here is I have created that directory GoPath. Okay, so what are we going to do? Why are we doing this? So we're going to learn Chaincode. We're going to learn about what is Chaincode. How do you implement it? I talked a little bit about dependencies. We're going to look at the major functions in Chaincode. Look about passing values in as arguments. And compiling your Chaincode. Chaincode itself, if we hadn't discussed it, it's either Go or Java code, and this enables a user to interact with the blockchain network. Whenever you invoke a transaction on the network, you're calling a function in Chaincode that's reading and writing values to the ledger. Simple as that. So, all right. So what we need to do now, we need to install the Hyperledger version 6 codebase. That code is going to come from a repository up on GitHub, the Garrett Fabric repository. We're going to want to make a directory for that underneath GoPath. So let's make our directory. So let me just my poor typing. So let's change to that directory. Just bring that previous command back up. Alright, so there we go. Now what we're going to do, let's change over to tutorial for a second. And we are going to, as I mentioned, install the 0.6 version, so you can just copy the git clone command. Go back to your command prompt. And that is going to download the fabric. Once it's done, we're going to want to set up our development pipeline. Okay, there we go. So now we need to make a directory underneath the Go path as well. And this is going to set up, you have to have a what they call a source directory, and then we'll set up a directory that lines to GitHub and your repository. So let's use our make directory command, use our Go path variable, source github.com, and then here you're going to want to put whatever your repository is named, so insert your profile name. Alright, so now let's change, just going to change to that directory. Okay, and let's flip back over to our tutorial for a second. We are just going to set up our, as I mentioned, our development pipeline. And here you'll see there's 2 git commands. You are going to want to make sure that you pick version 2.0. This is going to grab the learn chain code that aligns with version 6. All right. When you copy that command, remember, whoops. Remember, you have to change to your repository, which I forgot to do. All right, so once that, all right, and like that, okay, so now we've just downloaded or forked our chain code. So, all right, so let's change directories. Well, first let's, okay, there's the learn chain code directory, so I'm going to change, and I want to go to the start directory. And what I wanted to mention is when you download that code, actually, let me go back one sec. One directory. What you'll notice is that you have a start directory and you have a finish directory. So start directory, you actually have a skeleton of the chain code script. In the finish is the actual finish version. And what we're going to do over the next few minutes, we're actually going to build out the chain code in start, just so you can learn what the functions are. So let's go back there. All right, so the next thing is we're actually going to compile the code in there because we just want to make sure that we've set up Go correctly, and you should be able to issue a Go build command, and this should come back with no errors. For some reason you do get errors, just go back and follow the commands in the tutorial around setting up Go. Typically what happens is you've not set up your Go path correctly, or you haven't put Go in the right directory. So, all right, so now we're all good. So what we're going to do now, we're going to interact. We're going to show you how to interact with your blockchain by modifying the learn chain code script. So what we're going to do is you're implementing the shim interface. There's 3 main functions. There's init, invoke, and query. All these 3 functions take a function name as an argument and an array of strings, and they're all called at different points. Your development path will end up with a working chain code that creates some generic assets for an exchange on a blockchain network. So we're going to open up the Go code, chaincode underscore start.go. Use your favorite editor. I tend to like to use Atom, or you can use, right here at the command line, something like VI or Nano. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to go to Atom, and there we go. Here's source. Here's my learn chain code. Here's my start. Here's my chain code. Start go. We're looking at chain start go. Before we start making changes, let's look at a couple of the things that are in the script. At the top, you'll notice that there is a main function, and the main function, it's always at the top, and what will happen as initiation, this registers the chain code with appear. Next, let's look. There's three functions that are in here. There's the initialize, which resets everything. The invoke, which will make modifications, and then a query function. First one we're going to work with is the init. Excuse me. It's called when you first deploy your chain code, and it's actually configuring an initial state for a single key pair value on the ledger. So we want to add some code to what's there, because we want to add something called the stub.putState that requests that when a value is sent in as the first argument in the function as a string, that it's going to be stored under a key called hello world. Now, the code for you is actually already written. It's over in the tutorial. So let's just go back there for a second. And let's scroll down. And you'll see right here, here's where we're going to set a variable. Just copy this code. And you're going to want to put it right after the first if statement. Copy one too many lines. All right. So now what happens if an error does occur? It's going to be because a wrong number of arguments or something happens writing to the ledger, but you've just written the initial function. So the next is the invoke function. The invoke functions really do what, the real work on the blockchain network, and they're used to update the ledger. This function, it actually receives a function as an argument as well as an array of arguments. Based on the function passed, it calls a helper or it returns an error. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a write function, is what's shown in the tutorial. So let's just flip back to the tutorial for a second. And what you're going to see here, right here, is you're going to add this code, which we'll call a write function. Oops. I'll put it after here. And what you'll notice if you've looked through the script, right, there is no write function. So we're going to have to add that. And again, the code's already done for you in the tutorial, so you simply need to copy it. put it at the end of the script. And it's going to be similar to the code in the init function because it's going to be using that command right here, stub put state, and it's going to look up the key value, and it's going to update the value that's associated with that. All right, so now, so you're almost done. The final function that we want to work on is the query function. This queries the chain code state. It's not going to add any blocks to the ledger like the other functions. Only deploy and invoke do that. But we're going to change the function. Let's just find it. Scroll up just a little bit. And here you go. Here's the query function starting on line 66. Again, you're passing in a function name as a string, and you're passing in an array of variables. So let's change this function. We're going to change it to read. Okay. Go back to the tutorial for a second. Make sure there's nothing else that we're missing. And nope, we're good. But again, just like when we changed the invoke function, we've just created a call to a function that is not in our chain code. So again, this is here for you. So I'm going to copy and paste it. Again, we're going to put this at the end of our chain code. Let's just stick it right after the right. And there we go. What you're going to notice is instead of stub put state, it's actually going to get state. You're passing in the key value, and it's going to bring back your value, or if for some reason it doesn't work, it's going to throw an error. So, okay, so we're all done. So, just going to save that. Let's go back to our terminal session for a second and make sure we're in the start directory. And what we're going to do, let's just see if we have any errors. And we don't. We've done everything correctly. So we've actually just showed you the main functions in the Go code to interact with the network. And the final step is to push this up to your GitHub repository. So I'm just going to step back one directory to our learn chain code. So let's see, make sure we captured the changes. As you see there, we have modified the chain code start go. So we're going to just stage all our changes. Then we're going to commit them. Type whatever you like. Okay, so now let's push it. All right, so you now pushed your code up to the GitHub, and that's it. So this is our next to last video. There's one more. So now what we're going to do in the last video, we will go over to Bluemix and we'll interact with the chain code using the Swagger APIs. Thanks very much.